To us, the environment in which fish dwell often seems cold, dark, and mysterious. But there are advantages to living in water, and they've played an important role in making fish what they are. One is that water isn't subject to sudden temperature changes. Therefore, it makes an excellent habitat for a cold-blooded animal. Another advantage is the water's ability to easily support body weight. Protoplasm has approximately the same density as water, so a fish in water is almost weightless. This weightlessness, in turn, means two things. One, a fish can get along with a light weight and simple bone structure. And two, limitations to a fish's size are practically removed. Yet there is one basic difficulty to living in water, the fact that it's incompressible. For a fish to move through water, it must actually shove it aside. Most can do this by wiggling back and forth in snake-like motion. The fish pushes water aside by the forward motion of its head and with the curve of its body and its flexible tail. Next, the water flows back along the fish's narrowing sides, closing in at the tail and helping the fish propel itself forward. The fact that water is incompressible has literally shaped the development of fish. A flat and angular shape can be moved through water only with difficulty. And for this reason, fish have a basic shape that is beautifully adapted to deal with this peculiarity.
Musicians are said to have better language skills, and scientific studies have backed that up, but it's not clear why that might be the case. Now, a study of 74 Chinese kindergartners suggests 6 months of piano lessons can heighten the brain's response to changes in pitch, and kids who got piano lessons were also better at telling apart two similar-sounding Mandarin words, which contain different consonants, than were students who got extra reading training, or who just went through regular kindergarten. The results are in the proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Mandarin is a tonal language, the famous example being the word ma, which can mean mother or horse depending on its pitch. So might musical training translate better to Mandarin than, say, English? Yeah, it's possible that influenced the results. Robert DeZimone, a neuroscientist at the McGovern Institute, admits, but he says other studies do back up the fact that music lessons benefit language learners, even in countries without tonal languages. And what our study added on top of that was also some idea of the neural basis.
Paper was first manufactured in Europe by the Spanish in the 12th century, although it had been imported since the 10th century. Around the year 1276, a mill was established at Fabriano in Italy. The town became a major center for paper making and throughout the 14th century provided most of Europe with fine-quality paper, which it has continued to produce ever since. By the 15th century, paper was also being manufactured in Germany and France, and it was not long before both countries became almost completely independent of material bought overseas. With the increasing availability of paper in Europe, the production of identical printed pictures became almost inevitable. The spinal cord, the link between the brain and the body, is a band of nervous tissue about the thickness of your little finger that runs through the backbone. Nerve cells called motor neurons convey electric impulses that travel from the brain to the spinal cord, branching off at the appropriate point and passing to the various parts of the body. Similarly, sensory neurons transmit messages from organs and tissues via the spinal cord to the brain. But the spinal cord also functions without the brain having to intervene. It alone controls those actions called spinal reflexes that need to be carried out very fast in response to danger.
As populations have aged, dementia has soared to become the fifth leading cause of death worldwide. Alzheimer's disease, a form of dementia, accounts for most of these cases. Tens of billions of dollars have been spent on Alzheimer's research over the past several decades, but still there is no cure. All attempts to halt the progression of the disease have failed. Now many major drug companies have pulled out of research altogether. So why is Alzheimer's disease still such a medical mystery? One of the signs of Alzheimer's in the brain is damage of connections and the loss of large numbers of neurons over time. It affects the hippocampus and its connected structures, making it harder to form new memories or learn new information. As damage spreads through the brain, the cortex becomes thinner and more memories are lost, although emotional responses can often remain. As the brain shrinks further, it slowly alters personality and behavior and eventually the ability to live and function independently.
In your role as a financial therapist, you've got sort of a 5-step process for something that you call financial intimacy. I'm wondering if you can help us define that and talk us through it. So with the first one, equality. What we want to capture here in a healthy financial dynamic is that both partners have equal say and equal power about what's going to happen with the money. So sometimes when a couple comes to me with an inequality imbalance, there's a partner that either maybe is bringing in the bulk of the income and then thus feels like they should have more say. Or sometimes there's a partner that's just more anxious about money and so really needs money to be a source of control for them and feels like their partner is just, and not agreeing with them and not doing what they say should be done with the money, that this is threatening to them. And they want their partner to kind of come to heel, if you will. So where I would approach that is, all right, well, we need to have both parties present in the decisions about the money. Just because you're more anxious or because you make more of a contribution to the income doesn't mean that you get an outsized say in this.
If Wikipedia had been around a couple hundred years ago, we probably would have had an article that says that the sun revolves around the earth because that was what we understood to be true. We no longer understand that to be true thanks to advances in science and physics. But if tomorrow we were to wake up and learn that in fact time being relative really does append the way that we think about the world, Wikipedia would have to evolve in order to describe that. So we're not really in the business of truth or facts. We're in the business of what is known and what has been determined through consensus, scientific consensus or otherwise. And I think that actually provides some clarity on how to understand what information you're looking at. One thing that I think is really unique about Wikipedia is there's only one version for the whole public. There's no feed that's curated for you or for me. We all are looking at
There have been various definitions of happiness throughout history and the history of psychology. The ones which interest me are attitudes to happiness that follow the Enlightenment, particularly in the work of Jeremy Bentham, for whom happiness was really a combination of physical sensations, pleasures as different combinations, and aggregations of pleasure and pain occur over time. They create these psychological experiences that Bentham called happiness, but underlying them for Bentham were physical triggers and elements.
In the 19th century, few people could afford to travel abroad. It was expensive and there weren't the massive transport systems that we have today. So curiosity about foreign lands had to be satisfied through books and drawings. With the advent of photography, a whole new version of reality became available. Publishers were not slow to realize that here was a large new market of people eager for travel photography, and they soon had photographers out shooting the best-known European cities, as well as more exotic places further afield. People bought the pictures by the millions, and magic lantern shows were presented in schools and leisure halls. Most popular of all, however, was the stereoscopic picture, which pretended three-dimensional views, and was considered a marvel of Victorian technology.
Animals raised in captivity behave differently with their wild counterparts.
Our group meeting will be held tomorrow in the library conference room.
He was not the only one to call for legal reform in the 16th century.